Hi everyone, and welcome to Wait, hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me let me catch it. Let me catch it. Okay. Woo, come on, child. Come on. Welcome to Quantum Acacias. My name is Dee Dee. My name is Dee Dee, and I am so glad that we found each other. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me get it together, okay? Laughter is a very powerful thing, and I feel like I'm starting it off with laughter, just to kind of lighten the mood before we get into this. Okay. So, oh, like staples, yeah. Okay, staples of society. What are the staples? Okay, and it's interesting because stables kind of look the staples reminds me of stables, like horse stables. And today, like February has been very interesting so far. Like I'll definitely say that January was very wild. 2025, January 2025 was very wild. And it was about hyperspace, dimensional reality, like beings that can utilize hyperspace. Even I'm reading a book from the 90s by that physicist, Mishu Kaku. I think that's how you say it. And I'm reading his hyperspace book, which I'm sure like that was like almost as old as me. So I'm sure he's got a lot of updates now, but I'm reading it to kind of get a gist on it. And it's been very interesting and then interacting. So, it's interest. There are so many interesting things, but it seemed like January was really about like actual tangible interactions with beings and these hyperspace concepts. And this is more about interacting with like items. So I've been looking at a lot of stuff on apports, which are where beings are able to like dematerialize an object from one place and then place it in another. And this is also across time frames as well. So if you've not heard of apports, there's a great channel on YouTube called New Thinking Aloud by Jeffrey Mishlove. And he has a great interview with Stanley Krippner or Kipner. I can't remember which one it is. And he talks about outports. There's also one with a guy named Amir, Amyr Emedin, where Stanley Krippner is talking about this guy and his ability to talk to different beings, and they were able to bring him valuable items like emeralds and things like that to impress women, but whatever. And so February has been about this. And so I'm not exactly sure how it's connected into my QHHT session, but that's what I'm talking about today. So I'm sure at some point in the year, I'll come back and be like, this is how it's connected to my QHHT session. So I'm talking about this QHHT session, which was the first one that I got. At some point, I will definitely talk about like my journey with QHHT and how I even came to it. But of course, I wanted to get some sessions before I started doing sessions for other people. And not that I like doubted QHHT and everything, because I came to it like in a very spiritual way. So I knew that it was legit, but I wanted to see what was going to be other people's experiences before I started giving the experiences, so I could let them know like what to expect. And so I actually got my first QHHT session like the month. No. So we got to Arizona on our 7-year anniversary, which is a part of how we came to Phoenix. That's a whole nother story. But so the next month, okay, I ended up having a QHHT session right when I got to Arizona within the first month of moving here. And during that time, we stayed in hotels for like 2 years with the kids, which is, child, that that in and of itself, okay? Life is crazy. But anyways, I ended up just reaching out to someone that was in my area, and there's a particular person, and on his like kind of about him section, he was talking about implants and the dark side of Saturn and things like that. And so I just knew that that was my guy. And the interesting thing is that I'm pretty sure that he was based in Mesa, and I had a vision before we moved to Arizona that I was going to be living in a place called Mesa. Which was crazy because like I totally forgot about that until some other things started lining up, like where we actually moved, and that's a whole nother story. But anyways, so I ended up reaching out to this guy, and I ended up getting my first session, and this is going to connect into the Saint Germain videos. So I don't know what I'm calling them, but I will definitely link the video. At the end of the video they say like, the next suggested video. So I'll make sure I put the Saint Germain video in there. Okay, so this is kind of in the Saint Germain saga. Now, in my session, I'm going to give like an overview. There'll probably be another day where I'll do like an actual in-depth breakdown of the QHHT session, because all of it was very interesting. Even I know that there was a woman who popped up during this QHHT session named Kim Possible. And I didn't know at the time that the person who was doing my session knew her and was very connected to her. But I've seen some of her stuff recently, and a lot of what she's talking about, I really resonate with it. And so I'll do a more in-depth one later. But the part of the session that I do want to talk about is the Saint Germain section. Okay, so skipping over a few things, but like a general overview in my session, though QHHT is kind of marketed, I would say, towards past life regression and then talking to your oversoul. My experience for pretty much all of my sessions have been about going either to the void space or going to some type of governmental program or something. They have not been like traditional past lives. I also haven't quite really seen myself die in a QHHT session either, which that's a part of it where you take the person through their death, because some people are holding on to traumas for their death. I have not had a QHHT session yet where I have actually passed away in some type of traditional sense, which is a whole nother thing. But anyways, so the beginning of my QHHT session, I actually was in the Bermuda Triangle, and I had a mentor who was teaching me. Now, I couldn't see the mentor, but he was there, and it was definitely an older male being. And I guess he was like teaching me how to jump on coordinates, like of reality, I'm guessing. And I definitely had the feeling that he had told me that I was not ready to jump yet, like to actually do this in like real time. But I was very headstrong, and I was like, nah, I got this. What's the worst that could happen? So we were supposed to be jumping to the Bermuda Triangle. Okay, that's where we're supposed to be jumping. That was the jump point. And from my understanding, this was like a big jump point. So it's like, there was levels to practicing with jumping. So, the lower levels of jumping would be like jumping in your house, right? And we like to think like, you just walk to different rooms, and that's true. But like with your astral body or things like that, even though that body felt very, very tangible, I don't think that it was an astral body. I think it was like, I don't know. That might start getting real kind of out there, but I'm just going to tell you what I think, and then we'll just kind of see how it plays out. But I think that this is like where people got the concept of creating a clone from. Okay. But I think that there actually is some type of way that you can create a physical double of yourself, and that double can actually physically move with you. And I think that's where people got the concept of a clone from. Yeah, because I was in like a material body. It wasn't just like an energy body or anything like that. And I didn't feel like I had left my body behind necessarily. But I did, in some type of way, feel like if something were to have happened to me in that body I was utilizing, like if something happened, like where it disintegrated or I jumped into some point where I couldn't, reassemble myself or something like that, that there was another body or another few bodies that I could transfer, I guess, my consciousness into and then pick up where I left off. Even though I would be in a different form of reality, I could still line up with, at some point, the reality that I was in without having to reincarnate. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so it's almost like when you're watching something, like when we used to have like that TV where you could like start and then stop and then rewind it and stuff like that. And you know how like sometimes when you transfer to like a different computer, and even with like YouTube videos, like if you're watching a video on your phone and then you pick up and you watch it on your computer, sometimes it doesn't always start exactly where you started on your phone or on your computer. Sometimes it'll start a little bit back. And then at some point it gets to the point to where you were when you're watching it. It's the same concept with the body. So you would technically be in like a parallel version of yourself, and then at some point you would make enough decisions where you would end up right where you were before your body disintegrated. Child. Okay, some people know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't, like, I feel like at some point you will know what I'm talking about. Okay, I know some people, it might sound cuckoo, but it's not, I promise you, okay? And the cuckoo bird is actually a really significant bird. So basically this mentor was like, you're not ready for this because this jump, and it wasn't that I wasn't ready for it, but he felt like I hadn't practiced it. And that's kind of how my personality is to a certain extent in this life. Like I focus in on the details, like when it's crunch time, but I really like to get like an overall view. And his point with me not practicing the jump just yet was that you have to be very poignant when you're dealing with mathematics, because the wrong step can lead you to go somewhere that you don't want to be. So anyways, I thought that I could handle it, child. And he was like, and I literally remember him telling me, like, Dee, if you don't jump correctly, if you jump and you hit the water outside of the Bermuda Triangle, with however this body and everything is formed or whatever, he was like, you will hit the void space and I won't be able to pull you back. And I was like, no, we'll be good. Child, we in fact were not good. And it was so crazy because I was literally like feeling his energy. And even though I couldn't see him, he was like off to my right and I couldn't really see him over there. I could only see Bermuda Triangle in front of me, like the waters. He was trying his hardest to pull me, but I misjumped and miscalculated the spot, and I definitely ended up in this like whirlwind vacuum kind of situation that brought me into a void space. Now, what void space this is, I do not know, because I know that this is not the same void space that I go to in the dream world. So there must be different types of void spaces or something like that, because this one was very different. Okay, so I could hear him like, oh my gosh, and he was just like, just try to stay calm and we'll figure out how to get you out. And so I understood that I was going to be in that void space for a while, child. Okay, for a minute. So, yeah. But obviously this had happened before and stuff like that. So I wasn't really freaking out. And then I also took the risk knowing that was going to happen. And so when I got into this void space, it was like the void space took over my whole entire visual field, and it was jet black. But then all of a sudden, there was like this device that popped up. And I'm going to try to like describe it. So it's almost like this like metallic kind of cylinder with indentions on it. And the best thing I can think of is like if you think about like a fascist, like that thing that's like on the dollar bill. And I've seen that before in a dream, and that's a whole nother situation. But it's almost like a fascist, but it's like a metallic looking one. So there's indents, kind of like wood lines going down it. And then there's this like space which has some type of energy or something coming off of it. And this space or this energy or whatever that's coming off of the cylinder at the top is actually keeping this like golden triangle intact. Okay. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it had to do with the Bermuda Triangle. I guess maybe it's like a dimensional aspect of it or something. I don't exactly know. But there was like this golden triangle that looked like a symbol. Are those triangles like the ones that they used to use for dinner time? It's dinner time. Do you know? And they would have like the little stick, and then like they would ring it, on farms and stuff like that. It kind of looks similar to that, but there were spaces and gaps between the lines of the triangle. So where the corners would be was actually a space, and there were these golden kind of rods, I guess, like golden colored rods that were making up this triangle, and they weren't actually touching. There was a space between the corner. And so anyways, it was like spinning around, and I was really fascinated because I was like, what is this device and what does this like triangle represent? And so me and the person that were doing the session were really trying to figure out like what this triangle was about, because I didn't know what it was about. And it wasn't like a thing where like, like if it's your memories and like your brain has scanned it and stuff like that, you can pick up information about things even if you don't necessarily know what the information is, because like the actual time period stores memories. But this one was different. Like I was like, no, it's not like that type of thing where I can just like look at it and know exactly what it's for, because it's like actively going on right now, and I don't have like access to that information. I don't even know who built this thing, but it was like this like whirling around kind of golden looking upside down like an inverted triangle. And so I'm like, okay. So as I was staring at it, there also was this figure there with me, almost like a shadow, but he was kind of like a silhouette. And he was black, and it was like a 2-dimensional. It was really wild. He was like 2-dimensional, but he was hovering around it, and we were both trying to figure out what this thing was. And I don't think I saw him at first because he looked just like a shadow, like casted shadow. But eventually I started to see him, and he looked like the thinker, where he was like naked. Like I could tell by like the silhouette that he was naked, and he was crouched down and in the thinker position. And I kept saying, it's like Atlas, but he doesn't have his world. Like he doesn't have his globe anymore. But then I also couldn't remember if there was like the thinker also. But that's what he looked like. And even though he was showing up as 2-dimensional, I understood like he was a consciousness, like he was a being. He wasn't just like a shadow from something, I guess. And he was trying to figure out this thing as well. He was trying to figure out what this device was too. So we're both hovering around and stuff, and then I get like this realization. And so, like this guy has D on the back of his head. Oh yeah, look. Oh, they must be connected to the Diamondbacks and stuff. But anyways, so this so I get like this realization, and I realize that this device, now I don't know what the name of the device is or anything like that, but as I was staring, I guess long enough, I started to realize that this device like splits you up dimensionally. That's what it does. And so I was telling him, I was like, oh yeah, so this device like splits you dimensionally so you can see the different versions of yourself. So I was looking down and I was like the fifth dimensional aspect of this soul stream. And that's how I'm going to say it, because each dimension was like living their own realities. But in this void space, we are all connected into each other. So even though I don't know that the earth is necessarily 3D, I think certain people are living like tangent realities to people who have 3D realities, I guess. But you can pull the fourth and fifth dimension into your reality, which has to do with, I think, your ability to like see the future and stuff is like pulling in a fifth dimensional construct. I don't know exactly. I'm gonna have to think on that. But I think certain people are living in 3D, and I believe that this reality can support all of the D's, all of the D's, up to like the 10th or 11th dimension. Excuse me. That's my current belief. Okay, so anyways, so he was like, okay, you're the fifth dimensional aspect. And I was like, yeah, I'm the fifth dimensional one. The fourth dimensional one is missing. We're going to get to that. The fourth dimensional one is missing. The third dimensional one is like a yellow orb of light. The second dimensional one was like a caveman. And then the first dimensional aspect was a daisy. It was a flower. And so I don't want to get into all of the other dimensions and stuff right now. I'll do that on like a longer video. But getting into Saint Germain, okay? So when I was looking at the fourth dimensional aspect, it was literally like just like darkness. And it was almost like how I would explain like the dimension looked like a rectangle, but expanding all the way through the reality. So my fifth dimensional aspect was me, and then my reality here expanding the whole thing. So the caveman's was like the second dimensional aspect, and it was going all the way through that reality. So everybody was in different realities, but we were all connected on the same soul stream going all the way up, okay? So the fourth dimensional aspect was missing. And so he was like, okay, well, do you want to explore the fourth dimension and see why it's missing, or do you want to do something else? So we did something else for a while. Then I was like, yeah, let me see where my fourth dimensional aspect is. Child. So literally what I did was like, I literally just like took my consciousness and did like a dive into the fourth. That's what it looked like. Like I stepped out of my rectangle into the all-encompassing space, and then I just did like a nosedive into the fourth, okay? And when I did, I ended up as an energy floating around in what looked to be like old London or something. That's what it looked like to me, like old London. And I was seeing Comet Saint Germain, and I'm pretty sure he was also with someone named Cogliostro. Now, I remember that name from Doctor Strange, and I'm pretty sure it was someone that had something to do with time or something like that. I don't know exactly, but I was seeing both of them walking around London, okay? And I'm not sure where it is in London. I have to go back to the session. But anyways, next thing I know, I was seeing them walk somewhere in London or something. And he was in this like makeshift laboratory, okay? He was in this makeshift laboratory, and it looked like what he was doing was he was trying to recreate the Philosopher's Stone, okay, which was chemicals. And I'm not exactly sure if like his Philosopher's Stone was spinning any metal into gold, but he was trying to make like this all-encompassing substance, okay? And it wasn't going that well because whatever he was making, it kept ending up purple instead of gold. So it was like this purple, like thick kind of molasses type of substance. And I was like, oh, okay, that's why. So the interesting thing is that before I saw him in the lab, he had all of these like golden runes around the place that he was. So at first when I was seeing him walking and stuff, then I saw him like kind of disappear kind of, and I saw these like golden runes, and I was like, oh, that's weird. And so these golden runes, and I'm calling them runes, but like symbols and things like that, were, I would say, kind of like a precursor to angelic language, like Enochian. And so he was trying to use them to ward off prying eyes. Okay. Now, why he was trying to do that, because I remember saying, like, oh, okay, he's using these wards because he's trying to keep certain energies from knowing that he's doing this, because he's not supposed to. And it was almost like he had been banned from doing this, like trying to achieve this philosopher's stone by like some type of counselor or something like that. And so it was like some being had given him these sigils or runes or whatever. And they told him that this would help him to, keep the councils or whatever from knowing what he was doing. And, oh, look, this says 70 CE, like 70 before Common Era. Interesting. So maybe something significant about that year. I don't know. But anyways, so whatever these beings told him, they were like, this will like keep them from seeing you, whatever. And it did kind of sort of work. But what it did was it made it also extremely obvious that something was going on. Do you know what I'm saying? Because he was like his whole dimension was like completely black. And so, like, they might not pay attention to that, but that's actually what made me focus on it. Because I'm like, why is this dimension black when all the other dimensions are, lively and things are going on? And also, like, the rune, I would compare it to, like, Doctor Strange, like, Multiverse of Madness, where Scarlet Witch is able to kind of lower their defenses. It kind of looked a little bit like that, like this kind of dome of sigils. Not exactly like that, but reminiscent of that. And there were like holes in his dome. So he had about like 85% of it. And I was saying to the guy that was doing it, I was like, well, it's not 100% effective, because when you're doing these sigils, these hieroglyphs or symbols and all these different things, your intention behind it also builds the integrity of it. So you have to be integral in order for it to work 100%. So that also was why I was able to kind of find him and breach it and see what he was doing, because it's not just about writing the sigils, there's also the intention behind it. And if you don't have the correct intention, spiritually, metaphysically, etherically, it's not going to have the same effect. But anyways, he was like trying to create the philosopher's stone, this substance or whatever, and like I said, it was turning out purple instead of gold, so he hadn't quite figured it out. Now, I also didn't like confront him, because I felt like since he had like 85% of this sigil thing built, that he was actually like trying to do this for a good reason. I do feel like the 15% was because he was trying to get away from some type of karmic something. But overall, though, it seemed like the reason he was doing it did have like more good intentions than not, so I didn't like confront him or anything. But I thought that was interesting. And then there's a lot more things that happened in the session, which I will talk about at a later date. So that's where I'm going to end it, you guys. And if you've had a experience with Saint Germain, or if you've had some type of similar experiences with the Bermuda Triangle, anything like that, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. I'm sending you lots of love, lots of hugs. Make sure you check out the description box below, where I have my Etsy shop if you're interested in services or anything like that. Also, my Cash App. None of that is ever necessary. That's just in case there are people people who are looking for services. But I'm just glad that you're on the channel. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.